What on earth is going on with XP? What is happening? Oh man. I think I'll need to take a look at this because I have zero idea. But hey, if it makes all of you want to talk and chat more, then wonder. This is very funny. Is this a new YouTube thing? What is happening? Has anybody ever seen anything like this on any other stream? I could see Lotus has 70. You guys are all tied at 75 XP. Whatever that means. But Lotus has the most 75. Alright, Holly, you're a moderator. I need to expect higher standards from you. I need to expect higher standards from you. That doesn't mean you do it as well, Fark. Oh, man. Is this something... This is obviously visible for you guys on YouTube. Which I thought maybe it was just me, but it's not. But it's not. What a way to start a stream, huh? What a way to start a stream with a community leaderboard. Okay, anyone who's spamming, I'm going to have to time out. If you keep spamming random gibberish, I am going to need to start... For once, Arcane is not going to be the one that gets timed out. Lotus, thank you for the $10. What is the cool purple XP thing? I have zero idea. I have absolutely no clue. I'm assuming you all can hear me too. I'm assuming you all can hear me. Congratulations, King. You now have 25 experience. That's true, Arcane. I need to find out what this is. A place to stand out. A top 3 special. It resets every stream so you can always... learn more or turn it off in the help center. This is a new YouTube thing. This is a new YouTube thing. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I could display my new layout just for this thing. Hello, everybody. So, changes for the stream. We're doing... So my channel, for those of you who have been paying attention, it's just become a knockoff of everybody else's channel, whether it's a Luke Stevens, a Mr. Matty Plays, or a Legendary Drops. There's no originality on my channel anymore. I'm just a knockoff of people who are doing it better than me, so that's the direction we're going. But my mic changed. It's not my good mic. Okay, no worries. Thank you for letting me know. That should be easy enough to change. There we go, and just to make sure, please let me know if I sound clear. There's gonna be a few... Oh. Right. Okay. No worries. No worries. Okay, we should be better now. We should be better. All right. Well, welcome. And so like I was saying, I'm just an amalgamation of. No. No, we're not fine. Still webcam audio. Okay. Well, this is always fun. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's just check out really quick here. What if still webcam audio? We don't want webcam audio. Okay. How about now? Are we sounding good now? Thank you, Lotus. I sound fine on Lotus's Dolby Atmos, but Holly as my moderator. Now it's echoed. Okay. Way worse. Nice. Beautiful. Echo. Okay, so it will need to be this, and then no improvements here, I'm guessing, right? Still webcam? Still webcam audio? Little Timmy's down in the well! Are you lost, little Timmy? Not the way we want to start a stream, huh? Okay, well thank you for standing by, everyone that is. No, I know roughly what's going on. Let me try... Let's try... We're gonna go back to this
for just a second. We're gonna go back to this screen for just a second. I wonder if you guys aren't... No. Nope, nope, nope. Now it sounds good, huh? Nope, nope, nope. Now it sounds good, huh? You're going to hear an echo just because I'm listening to the audio on my end. So you're going to hear an echo for that reason. Just because I'm listening. So just keep that in mind. If I go back
to this view, does it still sound clean? To this view, does it still sound...
Okay, we're just gonna have to do the whole show from this view then, I guess. There's definitely a duplication of audio somewhere. I just cannot find where. Thank you everybody for sticking around as we figure out some technical difficulties. As we figure out a couple of technical issues going on. We are testing. Okay. Hopefully now? Hopefully now. Okay. Yes! Hey! Okay, alright, alright. Now let's just make sure. Hopefully now. Okay. Yes! Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, look at that! Isn't that pretty? Okay. There we go. So, should be working now. Thank you all for sticking by while we figured that mess out. I figured what it was. Very silly thing considering just how OBS can sometimes get in the way. But anyway, welcome ladies and gentlemen to this episode of the Push Start Podcast. There is a lot of you in there. Congrats to Lotus Esprit for winning on the community leaderboard. So this is a brand new thing that's a built-in YouTube feature. I guess that's kind of cool. And I was starting off the stream by saying, because I have zero originality in my body whatsoever, that we're doing a different kind of setup where I will be able to go to this and share a screen with you guys and go through some stuff, and then go back and talk directly to the audience. So basically the goal is for those of you who are here live, it might not apply, but again, in order to try to continue to grow the channel and have some consistent flow of content, taking direct inspiration from what Luke Stevens does with his Luke Stevens Live. Also, for every time I say or use a filler word, I need to take a drink, because the goal is to speak slower and knock that habit out. There is going to be a separate screen. So if I pull this up, 1 second here. So there is a second screen. So if I'm going to be talking and chatting directly with you guys, I will be using this screen here. Let's make that chat box a little bigger. And we'll make myself a little smaller. Bring that down. There we go. So the goal is to try to produce a bit more content, and as a result, let's make sure I'm not double of myself again. I should be good. So as a result, what we'll basically be doing is, if I'm in a screen like this, I'm talking directly to you guys. Alternatively, I might shift to a full screen, in which case or into a direct article, in which case I will probably end up clipping the segments to upload as a video. And I'll probably add more flair to it. I might even go back in and I'll probably end up adding in some B-roll of whatever I'm talking about. I might add in a couple more edits or transitions between certain things. But again, the goal is to try to continue to grow the channel. Reference that all those conversations do take place live, so hopefully we can try to bring in more folks who want to chat with the community and hang out with you guys. I love to see all of you. Welcome, Sips. Welcome back. Great to see you. I'm happy that you're here. So the goal is to hopefully try to encourage more people to come in and hang out, and otherwise check out other videos that have an opportunity to develop more reach. And one of the big goals of my channel too, another secondary reason for doing this, is because I do want to try to... Whoa! Okay, we're just gonna lower that. Yikes! I don't even know what that was for. I have no idea what that was for. But we are absolutely going to lower the volume of that because, oh my god, I thought I was going to go deaf. Was that too loud for you guys too, or did I just have my audio too high? Please let me know, because I thought my ears were going to burst. Anyway, the goal, again, making sure we're awake. I guess that's the point. The goal, again, is one of the other objectives of this is to try to produce... It was loud. Banging! Alright. I think I need to change that here. But I'm not going to be able to do that just today. Or just right now, unfortunately, as far as I know. Unless I have the option to really quickly... Yeah, I could probably do... There we go. I'll lower that down. 15. Let's do 20. Let's do 30%. I'll make that 30% quieter. Anyway. The neighborhood heard that. I am a bit quiet. We'll figure out stream. We'll figure out how to do streaming eventually, ladies and gentlemen. So the other goal of doing with this format, right, is in order to try to get content. Often on the podcast, I'll talk about a wide range of different subjects, and the goal is to, at least on the channel, as main form content, as far as what we are talking about, as far as things that other viewers might step in because they don't want to watch a whole hour-long stream. The goal is to use that to have a bit more variety of videos that go up. So I will be able to talk about those things here, while also still being able to make more formal videos talking about games that I really am excited about without flooding the channel of that style of content. So obviously the studio that comes to mind is Bethesda, right? I love the titles that Bethesda makes, whether it's from Arcane, whether it's from Machine Games, id Softwares. The reason why having a channel based around them is kind of a cool thing is because they have such a variety of games. But naturally, I want to make sure that we try to engage with people who have a wider range of interests outside of just Bethesda. I want my channel to not be known as a Bethesda channel, and so this presents a good opportunity to make content outside of it, because naturally during live streams, I want to talk about these other things. So that's the plan. Again, I'll be engaging directly with the audience, with you guys, when I am in this type of screen. If I am in a full-sized or I'm in a windowed view such as this, probably means that I am focusing on a specific story. The other benefit of this as well, the last thing I will say, before we actually get into it, the other thing I will say is... Ideally, the reason why I want to try this format is also because for those of you that are watching, what this requires me to do is prepare a little bit better. Because in order to... It's one thing when I'm bouncing off of chat and I'm able to react with you guys, and if I lose my train of thought, I could just go into a chat, read something, and go off on a tangent in that way, right? It makes it very easy to... come a little bit less prepared. It's easy. It provides a bit more of an excuse, maybe just for myself mentally, to not have material and content and knowledge about the subjects that I'm talking about. Whereas if I am trying to present more directly to, in the style I would a video, where I'm looking at, I'm reading about some things, I'm pulling up some articles, I'm sharing some stuff that we're seeing. In this case, the leaderboard, which is really interesting. And is there anything you can do? You earn a badge, so there's nothing you can do with it, you just earn a badge. So this is something brand new. I guess you get bonuses from powered by jewels. What are jewels? So this will be something I have to look into more. But there is a leaderboard where the more viewers engage, for example, via live chat messages, super chat, stickers, or gifts, the higher they rank on the leaderboard. As you engage, you'll earn a crown icon that displays the cumulative points you've earned with engaging for this specific live stream. Clicking on the icon will take viewers directly to the leaderboard to see the top 50 engaged. The top 3 get a special badge. So I could see, For some reason, all of you guys are tied at 75 XP. I don't know if that's because my leaderboard is broken, or if it's based on the amount of people that are engaging with chat. But there you go. I would love to be powered by your jewel. If you want to power up my channel with your jewels, then by all means, I encourage you, to power up the channel with as many jewels as you're willing to present to me. I don't know what's happening anymore. Okay, let me set up one more thing really quickly. I apologize. And then I will, there we go. And now I'm able to just quickly on the fly swap between all of these things. Great. It might be broken because this is an experimental feature. So they explicitly state, if we go back, it says, visible during live streams and ranks. This is an experimental feature being rolled out to a select group of creators. So welcome to everybody in the chat. You are part of a special group of creators. Me, I'm special, everybody. Look, it says so right here. Select, not special. Sorry. Select. Which means special. I'm very special. YouTube says so. Keep that in mind as you interact with the channel. Okay. Anyway, should we probably get to our first subject for today? Probably. There you go. All right, number one. Couple things I really want to highlight just really quick. Before we get into any of the serious news topics, there are two call-outs that I do want to make. First off is a cool little indie game. Called Nice Day for Fishing. So, most of you may not know what this is, and I understand. Nice Day for Fishing is a game that is made by the team, or it's inspired by the team that has done Viva La Dirt League. So if you've never seen or watched Viva La Dirt League, I highly recommend that you check them out. They are hysterical. Whenever I go into making some kind of a skit or a parody for my reviews, I am constantly thinking of how can I make it funny like the way that they do. And so Nice Day for Fishing, they made this little indie game based in the world. They basically have a lot of skits. There's their longest running series called Epic NPC Man that is along the lines of what would happen if there were sort of more sentient NPCs in an MMO world. And they've created this whole fictional world called Azerim, and they've run a separate D&D campaign that you can also watch. They have Viva La Dirt League D&D. And they've made a D&D campaign that gets set in this world. They have a series where it's set in a game store, and they basically deal with the retail associates that are in that store. They have a series that's, for example, Witcher logic. They have Escape from Tarkov logic. They have Players Unknown Battlegrounds logic. It's hysterical. And it's all based around gamers. It's one of the funniest series. I definitely inspire my own humor around what they do, and I would love to one day be able to have that. They got big enough where they were able to buy their own production studio, which is pretty damn cool. So now they have their own sets. They've built an entire tavern where they do some of their skits and they play D&D in within a building, which was all crowdfunded. And that's honestly the goals of making content, right? Is to be able to afford to do insanely cool stuff like that. They teamed up with Team 17, exactly. So they teamed up with Team 17 to make this Nice Day for Fishing, which is based in the world of Azerim. And I will end up buying this game just to support Viva La Dirt League, because I really love their content, and anytime I see a video published by them, I'm instantly in a better mood. You play as Balin, who is this fisherman, and he has one line in the entire series, which is, Nice day for fishing, ain't it? That is his entire line, ever, for the history. And you play as him, but he becomes one of the adventurers, which represents the player characters in the MMO. And then you go off and you do this epic quest based around fishing to save the world of Azerim. Really cool concept, beautiful art style, lots of inside jokes if you're familiar with them. So highly recommend that you go ahead and check this series out. Really damn cool. Other small little story that I want to talk about, which is really nice to see, is Expedition 33. So congratulations to the Expedition 33 team. 3.3 million copies sold. Oh, don't want to do that. 3.3 million copies sold 33 days after releasing Expedition 33. If 3 is not their lucky number, and if their next game is not Expedition 333, then they're doing something wrong, because this is incredible to see. Totally deserves it. I've still not finished. I'm still not even through Act 2 yet. I think I'm getting there. I'm not too sure. But congratulations. It just goes to show when you have a studio, a development team that's filled with passion behind the project that they're working on, and they go and make those dreams a reality. When a developer from Ubisoft turns around and says, the game I want to make is never going to get made. We're just going to go off on our way, make our own thing, hire a bunch of talent who's equally as passionate about me. The team size was 30 people. And we're going to have some stories today that emphasize the value of complete feeling experiences, high value experiences, especially in the market of a $80 game economy that we're shifting into. The value of having these titles. We're going to talk about that in relation to Star Wars Battlefront 2 and what's going on with that. But I highly recommend everybody goes out and buys this game. You can experience it and try it out through Game Pass. Highly recommend that you go off, support this team, buy the game. It's $40 or $50. Definitely worth every penny, even if you do not like JRPGs. It's phenomenal. You could just play on the story mode and enjoy the tale that it spins, because it's phenomenal. And they're already thinking about a sequel. There was previous discussions where they were saying that that DLC might be on the table for the game. They weren't too sure. Supposedly now they also are considering that they might want to try a sequel, which is pretty cool, because if I were to make a suggestion to the team, to Sandfall that made this game, I would say go into a sequel. Because I have always been of the mindset, even when it comes to things such as live service games, I have always been of the mindset to say, I think it is better when we sort of see a 2.0 version of the game instead of a 1.3 version of the game, which is how I would describe something like you could try to say Far Harbor, or like a 1.5, excuse me, but I would say a 1.3 would be Far Harbor, would be Nuka World, would be a Shivering Isles, right? Because it's the game plus, and they might change a few things, but all of those core mechanics are still there, so they can only do so much. In this way, they are able to do all of the new cool features that they wanted to in a brand new project. And they've definitely made the money and gotten the attention that they need to make a sequel happen. So there you go. Congrats to that team. All right. Fark, thank you for the £2, it's Monopoly money. Thank you for the $2 Monopoly dollars. I wonder if this super chat makes me number one. It didn't seem to. Sorry. You need to... Thank you for the $2 super chat. It's didgeridoo. Thank you for the 2 didgeridoos. Yeah, I assume that you need to go further than what Lotus did. Because Lotus is still number one as far as I could see. Slowlark, I see Slowlark has 50 XP though. So there you go. Yeah, 2 didgeridoos, that's what I said, don't worry. I'm playing Tainted Grail right now. Tainted Grail is also a phenomenal experience. We're flooded, we're inundated by great games, and not only are we inundated by great games, we're inundated by great games that are not priced at $80. Go figure. People don't want to pay $80 for a video game. I don't want to. All of you guys who are watching know my take on that, so I don't want to hound that. I love it when game creators are able to make something they truly love. Me too. Now, the issue is that it doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. We saw that with, and I every single time forget the name of the game. It was made by the folks who worked on Call of Duty. They were developing, it was the Magic themed first person shooter. I forget this every single time what the name of this game is. One of you will know. But anyway, Immortals of Avium. Thank you. I know, I always remember A. I remember A, but I never remember the name. Thank you both, Arcane and Influent. So, Immortals of Avium was another game that had tons of passion behind it, right? It was a very similar story. That developer left because he had actually tried, if my memory serves me right, that developer had actually tried to pitch a Magic first-person shooter to the company, and they said, no, we make Call of Duty, we're not making this. And so he went off on his own, he tried to make it, and it didn't do that great. You can look at, for example, former BioWare devs left and they worked on Nightingale, which was a survival adventure game. And Nightingale was really cool conceptually. When I was seeing all of the previews for Nightingale, I was very impressed. And I said, okay, hopefully we'll have some of the storytelling chops that BioWare typically injects, right? The worlds were cool, the weapons were cool, the giant creatures were cool. You're flying around Mary Poppins style on umbrellas through these big levels. Looked awesome for a survival game. And then when people actually got their hands on it, the ultimate sentiment was it didn't attract a dedicated survival audience because many of the quality of life features that you get from studios that know how to make survival games were not there. And so people didn't stick around for that one. But again, it was another project that was fueled by passion. So it doesn't always work. But when it does, it really does. So there you go. I didn't support $70 games, definitely not supporting $80 games. Neither am I. Unless it's something I really want to review, then I will because I'm making content. But otherwise, I hate it. And ultimately, the value when you do any reviews, the value is going to come from saying, is this worth a full $80 price? I can guarantee you the answer is going to be no 9 out of 10 times. There might be one single exception to that years from now. I have 2 quick questions. Will we see Starfield DLC Starborn at the Xbox Showcase? 2, is it possible that we might see something from Elder Scrolls 6? I will be making a video. I actually recorded my early takes on Showcase predictions, and I broke it down into Xbox Showcase predictions and Summer Games Fest Showcase predictions. Wasn't all comprehensive because I don't care about every game that comes out, right? So I'm not going to talk about them, especially if I don't know too much about them. But for example, I've never been a huge fan of Double Fine games. I've never been so maybe they're there with something. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it. Will we see Starfield DLC? I think there's a very good chance that there will be Starfield DLC. Will there be Elder Scrolls 6? No. Not at all. I give that a 2% chance, and I think 2% is me being generous. I'm going to say there is a 0.5% chance of Elder Scrolls 6 making an appearance. Sorry. Especially when the concentration, as far as Microsoft goes, is going to be we know that the main focus is Outer Worlds 2. They're not going to want Elder Scrolls 6. You have to keep in mind that they're coming off of the excitement of the Oblivion remaster. I don't think that's necessarily what Microsoft is thinking, but as far as when we try to over-analyze and over-scrutinize why might it not be there, right? I love when content creators do this. They're like, oh, well, it's not going to be there because they're worrying about the fact that Oblivion Remastered is going to take away, and the hype is for Bethesda game. And chill, relax, slow down. What they're looking at is they would probably look at, we have Outer Worlds 2, we want that to be the focus, a Bethesda game might steal the spotlight. That's exacerbated when you have the excitement behind Oblivion Remastered, and now you have another Elder Scrolls announcement. They don't want to overshadow that. You also have Fable that's coming out as well. So between those two fantasy RPG, or I would say Outer Worlds is like a sci-fi fantasy, right? So between those two, probably want to just pump the brakes on Elder Scrolls for a bit, especially when, again, Starfield DLC as well. Let's give that the attention. Did Expedition 33 make you cry? I keep seeing people posting. The moment that made most people, how do I say things without spoiling it? The moment that got most people earlier on in the game did not exactly get me. It was a moment after that got me. And then it's also, strangely enough, a lot of the interactions between Minoko and Verso really get me as well. Not even the emotional moments, just the playful banter that the two of those characters have. I'm not crying when I'm listening to them saying funny things, but it really does, it hits me tight because it's a really cool bond that the two of them have, that I think most people should try to strive to have that relationship. The way that I can jest with all of you in chat, right? We're building that. You and I, we're here building that relationship. I do wish Tainted Grail had a Valve level combat. I don't feel great, but I love exploring too much. Tainted Grail has a AA feel to it, but I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. I think that the combat was really balanced well. What I've said in the past is that it was balanced well as far as difficulty and sort of the parrying, the blocking, the pushing, the being able to dodge back and forth feels really good when you're in combat. And so I have a lot of fun with it. So there you go. All right. I want to get into my first official story for today, which this is something that I talked briefly about last week. Star Wars Battlefront II and its performance has been a pretty big enigma, right? Seeing these player numbers jump exponentially. When you look at the Steam player count, it's actually really quite funny to kind of look at a historical view. You can see, for example, that the number just spikes. It's around 1,000. It hits 2,000 from time to time. And then all of a sudden, it just whoop up, up and away, which is incredible. And it's not slowing down. It's not slowing down. The question is whether or not it will maintain this peak. That's a different story. I do think, and when some developers come in and they talk about, oh, well, this is, where there's no chance for a Star Wars Battlefront 3, it's not going to happen. What I do think EA is really saying, or anybody at the studio is saying, we don't have any plans to do it now, but we're waiting to see if this continues. If it's not just a fad and a trend, and if it can actually retain the player count that it currently has. And this is an incredibly important detail. For a couple reasons. But why is any of this happening in the first place, right? I think the first major question is there anything behind it? A lot of people are going to look at Andor Season 2, which makes sense. But I think there's a lot more going on. Star Wars in general has been having a phenomenal season. You look at, yes, Andor Season 2, but you have, coming from Respawn Entertainment, Star Wars Bad Company, you have the sequel of Star Wars Jedi coming out, you have the Revenge of the Sith 10th anniversary that just happened, Star Wars Eclipse is possibly going to be making an appearance at Summer Games Fest. I know a lot of folks have forgotten about that game, but I'm I'm anticipating that it will be there, which I'm excited to see what Star Wars Eclipse has to offer. There was also, if you're into the animated as well, they just had the Asajj Ventress stories that came out. I haven't watched them yet, but there were some more animated Star Wars in the style of the Clone Wars, which the Clone Wars is some of the best Star Wars content. If you have not seen it, at least find an abridged watch list for that series. Do yourself a favor and check it out. But recently, the player count did reach an all-time high of 18,000 players. Nobody was expecting this from Star Wars Battlefront 2, but it means more. It means a lot more that this is happening other than just, well, Andor Season 2 released. And the reason why I think this is an important conversation to have is because, not that studios or developers or publishers are listening to my small channel. I would love if they were. That'd be awesome. But they're not. Let's be realistic. I would like to try to get across the right messages, which is not to say, oh, we need to do more film and media adaptations, although we know that does help. In fact, Activision Blizzard just put out a recent marketing study that showcases and highlights the impact that all of these other sources of media have on the games. And they reference things like the Minecraft movie, they reference the Fallout TV show, I think they reference Andor in it as well. It's pretty interesting stuff. You can actually subscribe to an Activision Blizzard marketing newsletter, which is pretty cool if you're into that side of gaming. But it ties into, I think, the real reason behind a lot of this, and the reason why I think there's a good opportunity for this to stay positive is largely because the game is complete. And it's so utterly simple. It's such a simple reason, but the game is complete. And it's yet another, again, we've talked about this in other videos, but it's yet another instance of a game at this point in time. It costs $40. And that's not if it goes on a sale. Where on sales, sometimes this game can drop for, I believe it's around $8. $8. This is not a game that launched in a great state. When it launched, the fact that it is having this comeback story is incredible given the state that the game launched in. For those of you who don't remember, this is a game that was microtransactioned so badly that Disney ended up getting involved in the development of this game. Okay, they stepped in because it was around the same time that the sequel movies were coming in, and Disney was like, "What are you doing? What is happening? We have these movies. We need to make sure that audiences are exciting, and you are destroying them." This is a time where developers have stated that morale at the company, after the fact, once all this had come out, once the game had launched, the player sentiment was at an all-time low coming from developers who were working on the game at the time. There were legislators. If you remember, legislators started taking a closer look at gaming because they were calling this an online casino because the microtransactions were that bad. They had the star card system that was built in such a way where you needed to pay to win. You needed to buy all of the skins, you needed to buy all of the star cards, otherwise you were stuck grinding for hours and hours and hours and hours. And that is no exaggeration. If right now we take a look, they actually made spreadsheets of this. This is really funny. They actually made spreadsheets. So to unlock a single hero, it takes about 40 hours to unlock one hero in the game, which at the time, most of the heroes were locked behind some kind of a paywall of this nature. So you can play the game for 40 hours and then you get Luke Skywalker, or you get Darth Vader, the iconic Star Wars characters. You had to play this game for 40 hours. And this is where that iconic comment for player, we want to make sure that players feel a sense of pride and excitement when they unlock a new character. Pride and accomplishment when they unlock a new character. And you can take a look at the spreadsheet where this is actually after they redid it. They then lowered it down to 15,000 credits. And after 15,000 credits, it still took about 10 hours to unlock a singular character. Okay, so this was not a good game at launch, and that's not including that was 60 hours if you only aim to buy the characters. That was not 60 hours if you wanted to get skins or you wanted to get a new emote or you wanted to get anything else of that nature. Absolutely hysterical that they thought this was a good idea, that they thought that would fly. The game did launch, to its credit, it did launch well with maps. It had 11 maps and 5 different game modes, and that's not including the smaller versions of maps that they kind of input, because of course if you're playing Strike, which was a smaller team size, you might play on some unique maps. But overall, there were about 11 maps, 5 game modes. Now there's about 20 maps in the game, which is massively expanded, right? And a lot of them are really cool. They took inspiration from Rogue One. They added in Scarif, that planet. And of course, they added in all 3 eras. So the original Battlefront was a lot more limited. The Star Wars Battlefront 2 had all 3 eras, heroes and villains, and maps from each of those. And of course, with the final version of the game that we have now after all the updates, the weird thing that they did was they locked off characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Grievous, and Anakin Skywalker, especially from the prequel eras. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan, 2 of the most important characters that you could possibly have, gone. But hey, at least it got added in post-launch. So what's working now, right? What's working now is you are getting a series like Andor, which is going to pull people into the boots on the ground style combat. I actually went back and played, and I started from level 1. I am terrible at the game. Abysmal. I'm horrible. If anybody wants to join, I might consider playing some matches, because it is ultimately, even at level 1, even when you don't have the star cards, it is really fun. Because when you hop in the game, you have every single cosmetic unlocked. You have every single emote unlocked. You have every single hero unlocked. You have every single star card that you could earn through gameplay, right? Weapons are earned through gameplay. You get different attachments that you could have for specific ones. All of it is a complete and full experience. And I think now more than ever, especially when we talk about the success of a game like Expedition 33, when we talk about the rise of the AA industry, when you can purchase Star Wars Battlefront 2 for $8 on a sale, and you're getting this entire packaged content, this entire packaged deal, you are not breaking it up into smaller things that studios are saying, oh, well, we're going to release more content over time, right? You might get a situation such as Helldivers. Helldivers was doing well, players dropped off, some updates came out, then they started doing stuff in relation to Earth. Players are getting excited because they had a really big event in the game. Those only go so far. I think it really does highlight where player sentiment is at as far as exhaustion for live service. We're seeing how many games from Sony, that Concord, right? We're seeing Marathon, right? Live service projects that are failing back to back to back to back. Multiverses is another example that really hurt Warner Brothers games. We're seeing players increasingly tired with live service, and they're gravitating more. And as we get more Expedition 33s, as we get more Tainted Grails, players are going to continue to see what it was like years ago, when these are the types of experiences that we used to enjoy. When Mafia the Old Country, I'm really crossing my fingers that Mafia the Old Country comes out and releases really, really well, because it's going to be yet another case study of a studio that is saying, let's make the smaller, more passion-fueled experiences, curated experience that's a full package. We're not reselling things. There's no microtransactions. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Everything can be unlocked by playing the game. There's some collectibles to find. There's different outfits. A whole package, unlike what a lot of studios have been doing, whether it's Battlefield, whether it's Call of Duty, where they say, yeah, we have all this stuff, but look at all the cool things. Look at the battle pass. Don't you want to check out the battle pass? And they have all the animations and the flashy stuff going on. It's out of control. When a single weapon costs $20, which at this point is 50% of the price that you can buy Tainted Grail for. Just saying. Where's the better value? So I think ultimately the success of Star Wars Battlefront 2 and why I believe that it can maintain this really strong player count, honestly, is because players are recognizing, even if subconsciously, the full experience, the full package is what they want. And so if there ever is a Star Wars Battlefront 3, my honest advice to DICE would be, do not try, make sure that you have equally as much content and equally as fair of a progression system as you do now. Do not worry about battle passes, do not worry about player engagement metrics, and that's worrying when we hear companies like Sony saying that's really where their concern is. Because ultimately, where players' concern is my time being valued? And you don't get players feeling valued when you're trying to do all of the robotic and corporate things that you think is associated with player engagement. That is how we get instances such as a marathon. That is how we get instances such as a Concord. So on and so forth. Right, that's even, you could look at Shadow of War, right? Shadow of War, one of the first games, which released around the same time. Battlefront 2 was around the time when all of the microtransaction stuff started getting out of control. Completely and utterly, and fans were really starting to flip a switch on all of it. We had great releases, you know, Witcher 3 released around that time, Fallout 4 released around that time. There's still great experiences that were coming out, but this is really where things started to pivot for the worse. And so I look at a game like Star Wars Battlefront 2, or look like a game like Shadow of War, which was single player, introduced microtransactions into a single player game completely out of place. Players are tired of it. And I hope it continues down that path. Whoops. Anyway. What are we seeing here? Watch out. Well, you guys are still going on about the games. All right, let's catch up a little bit. It's definitely growing higher and higher. It is. Had to buy the horse armor for the devs in Tainted Grail. Jeremy, welcome, Jeremy. That is really, really funny that they included. And they even did poke fun in it. They said it was like a supporter edition where they wanted to have a... they wanted to have horse armor in it. For that reason. I wish they would do a PlayStation Pro update. Roadkill. Hey, Roadkill, how's it going? What do you mean a PlayStation Pro update? Just making the system run better? If it doesn't get canceled. Speaking of Monolith and Shadow of War, yeah, we're going to be getting into that. We're going to get into that. Don't you worry. Yeah, chat is no longer about the chat. Bobby Hawk has 250 XP. Arcane Realm has 125. Lotus Esprit has 75. Jeremy 75. Influence 75. King Fanman 75. Fark 75. Sip 75. That Blue Number 75. Roadkill 75. Slowlark 50. There's no prize, by the way. There's no prize for being number one. There is none. It took the British to push the pay to win out, if I remember. Yeah, they started... I think it was the EU, if I remember correctly. The EU started really getting involved with microtransactions, right? Because even still, the US does not consider it gambling. Most countries do not consider the microtransactions gambling, but I have to think that a lot of studios were sweating. A lot of studios were sweating when this was happening. Because they were worried, because it's their primary source of income. And if these studios started saying, or these legislative bodies were saying, oh no, it is gambling, then they would have been screwed. They would have been absolutely screwed. As a business owner, I concur. Many board directors have no idea how customers, they are so far removed. Lotus, exactly. And I would say as a business owner, you are more in tune because you're hanging out in chats such as mine. Although your business does something completely different than games. But what I will say is you seem like the type of person who has your ear to the ground a little bit better than many of these corporate suits, right? It doesn't work with one word only. There's probably, I have to imagine that there's some kind of a timer slow that if you're spamming messages, you're not getting points. Just as an FYI. I think it's about overall engagement. It's about just how much do you engage, not how many individual messages you send. So do with that what you will. Hey, RSJ, how's it going? Welcome. I was sleep happy knowing I was number 1 at something. I remember loot boxes were a big thing when the UK and EU had issues with it, and at the time you had no idea what was in loot boxes. Man, I feel so engaged. Yeah, well, the reason why a lot of bodies didn't consider this stuff loot boxing was because they were always guaranteed something. You weren't getting real money from it, which wasn't necessarily true, because you look at anybody who's seen anything regarding CS:GO knows that people would just go to third-party marketplaces and sell the skins that you could earn. Obviously, not every game had that marketplace availability, but you had the opportunity to earn real money in some instances. So that was always the argument. And also you always won something. So when you gamble, there's a chance that you could lose money and you might not get anything. You always earned, at the bare minimum, even if you got a duplicate of another item, you would get currency that would help you buy something from the store. That's been since replaced with battle passes, which I'm not going to get into a conversation about battle passes, but I think that is a substantially worse system than loot boxes. I think it is tremendously more greedy than loot boxes. But that's just my opinion. Because loot boxes, at least you had the opportunity, even if it was 0.002 chance, you had that 0.002 chance to earn that really cool legendary skin. Battle passes, the only way you're getting that really cool thing is if you're paying money for it. Otherwise, tough luck. SOL. Sorry, champ. I like to have ground floor to stay involved, relevant, truly understand employees and customers. And that's important. And employees recognize that, right? I just small example is I recognize, dude, when my CEO, I work in a small company, but when my CEO would come almost every day, would walk around the office and he would check in, he'd ask how you're doing, he would check what you're working on. It was like when we show those interviews with Todd Howard, how he's very active and involved at the studio, people recognize that stuff. And I don't think anyone is seeing Andrew Wilson hopping into a studio going, "Oh man, what are you working on? Oh dude, that's so cool. That's awesome. Like, oh, so you're coding this functionality. Man, I never knew that you had to, that this is how these games get coded, but I really want to learn more about it. Maybe I could spend some time where I sit down and I get a little bit more hands-on with it." They don't give a crap. They don't care. And so EA doesn't care. We know folks like EA doesn't care. It's no mystery that EA time and time again finds an opportunity to show how little they care. Every single time that they have an opportunity to show that they want to do something really, really cool, they manage to screw it all up. How in this instance? Because yet again, they've canceled another studio. They've laid off a bunch of staff. That they closed the entirety of Cliffhanger, which Cliffhanger was made. We were just talking previously. We were just talking about Monolith. Cliffhanger was a studio that was consisting of devs that worked at Monolith that previously were laid off because they were working on Wonder Woman, if I'm not mistaken. Now that studio entirely got shut down. Now it is worth mentioning that this is a company that previously they had involvements from Sweet Baby Inc., which we know that Sweet Baby Inc. is now getting removed from a lot of game developers and studios. I'm always someone who thinks that having diversity and having games that are inclusive is important. I will always stand behind that when it's done in a way that makes sense. When it feels forced and it feels like you're trying too hard to promote a message, that's when you lose myself and a lot of other audience members, but we're not going to push too far into that conversation today. This game did have an issue where the studio did have criticism that they said, we're not hiring anybody who's white because we're making Black Panther. That's the wrong mentality to have. It gave a lot of bad press and bad publicity for the Black Panther game, but ultimately it would have been really cool, especially in light of whether or not it would have tied into, for example, what Marvel 1943 is doing, where it's a combination of Captain America as well as Black Panther. That would have been really cool. And then you have a separate spin-off game, and you could have had this whole in-game universe with Black Panther and with Marvel characters that was the game universe, and you could have tried to further distinguish that and separate it from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that would have been awesome to try to flesh that out. Unfortunately, it won't be the case. So recently, they just announced that this game is going to be canceled. This is amidst a lot of layoffs, right? So they've already laid off 700 people. Respawn was actually going through similar issues where, if you remember back in April, they had canceled some of their projects because they wanted to have a core focus. That's the exact same thing we're seeing with when EA talks about what they're doing in relation to the Black Panther game. They're mentioning that they want to try to have a audience or a focus more on the IPs that really matter, that are really moving the needle. And what does that mean? That means FIFA. That means EA Sports titles. That does mean other projects like, for example, the Star Wars Jedi games. They want to try to invest a little bit more into that. It was a successful franchise. It's doing really well. And of course, ultimately, at this point, I would say that the sequel is probably too far in development for EA to want to cancel it. Although, nothing would surprise me at this point coming from EA. I think they'll just do whatever they know is going to be ultimately more profitable for them. But they are trying to trim down to focus on core franchises. That's going to be things like Apex Legends. It's going to be their sports titles. It's going to be their Star Wars Jedi. So what is interesting, and what I see a lot of people saying, is that it's sort of a really weird direction because they're making comments that seem to contradict themselves. As we know, we have EA focusing on fewer titles, but what we've seen from this, Battlefield is another big one I forgot to mention. But what we've seen from this too is even Respawn was originally working on these titles, and we don't actually know what they were, but one of them was supposed to be another shooter that was in progress. So they were going to be working specifically into, I believe it says here, the unannounced multiplayer first-person shooter game. The other one is unknown. Whether or not that was going to be, for example, a Titanfall, which, at least anecdotally, a lot of fans are hoping to see. A lot of fans are hoping to see. In this instance, not so much. Or from EA, at least, not so much. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate whenever studios cancel, and it's a confusing direction for EA to make, considering the fact that they are still working on several Marvel games. In fact, they still have in place 3 Marvel titles that was part of a deal that they made to work on them. One of which being Iron Man, which is still being worked on by EA Motive. The other 2, we're not quite sure whether or not one of them was supposed to be this Black Panther, and now they either have an idea that they think will work better, or they have an idea that they just simply wanted to pursue further, maybe a sequel to Iron Man. They're just really happy with the development of that game. Not too sure. But what I will say is it's interesting that a title like Black Panther can get canceled, that EA is sending out the messaging that they want to focus on more lucrative IP. They've even mentioned that they want to focus on less licensed games. And yet, conversely, they also have Star Wars being worked on. They have Star Wars Bad Company being worked on. They still do have the deal to make 3 Marvel games. And admittedly, some of these titles have the opportunity to be their biggest moneymakers, as we've seen with a title like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Incredibly successful title for Machine Games. There's a lot of hype and anticipation surrounding Marvel's upcoming Blade title. There was a lot of disappointment when we look at a project such as Wonder Woman being canceled, another superhero project. And then, of course, Rocksteady. A lot of the disappointment from Rocksteady came from the fact that they released a live service, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, instead of another proper Batman game, because we did hear about potential canceled Damian Wayne spinoffs. We heard about potential Batman Beyond games, right? A lot was going on with Rocksteady. So it's not necessarily, I don't believe, an issue with the licensed titles. I think it's mainly just an issue with the costs that go into making the licensed titles. So when you look at the value, the ROI for a studio that like EA, which is mainly driven by their massive franchises. It's mainly driven by their Battlefield. It's mainly driven by their EA Sports Club, their soccer game. It's mainly driven by Madden. All of those are the big money makers. It's hard to be willing to shell out tons and tons of money and say, we're going to make this licensed IP, but we're going to spend 20%, I don't know the actual numbers, in order to make sure that we can work on this really cool Star Wars title, or we can just double down on getting more FIFA microtransactions and or EA Sports Club Ultimate Team transactions. It's a lot easier of a sell. And it is worth mentioning too that EA's income, they're one of the few studios that actually did report they were having a loss in total revenue. So not by much, they're still raking in tons and tons of money, but they did have an overall decrease in their total revenue compared to a company like Microsoft that's doing really, really well. Trying to see if there's any other details that I might have missed in relation to this. We still do have Marvel 1943, which was recently delayed to 2026. So if you are fans of Black Panther and the character, you're still going to get to see him. But there's a trade-off to, there's an unspoken trade-off to this as well. There's a massively unspoken trade-off to doing any of this, which is just how the developers feel, right? When you do experience studio layoffs, and this is something that the CEO of Nintendo way back when the company wasn't doing so well, he cut his own salary to make sure that they did not have to experience any layoffs. This was massive. And yet when they still experience these layoffs, studios don't realize the impact that it has internally, where you do have an exciting project like the Star Wars Jedi game, but when coworkers are seeing their friends and their friends and their family, when they're seeing friends and people who feel like family who they're working on really closely, leaving the studios, it's painful, and that's going to impact the overall final product that you get out of it. So at Respawn, there's an all-time low, not the type of thing that you want to hear. Not the time that you want to hear when you are working on the third trilogy, the third conclusive entry to a massive Star Wars trilogy. Not when you're working on a brand new game within Star Wars with Bad Company that's a whole different style and format. It's going to be a turn-based Star Wars game that a lot of fans like myself are excited for, because we're getting a Star Wars XCOM-like Star Wars game that's really exciting. And it's not a good time to do this when you're also trying to pump out games such as Battlefield, or you're you're seeing the flourishing of Star Wars Battlefront 2, but you're also, on the other hand, seeing, hey, look at these games that we know could have been great Star Wars Battlefront 2 suffered because EA forced us to throw in all these microtransactions that they're trying to double and triple down on by doubling on these established franchises. And yet, now you're stuck picking up the pieces by having a team that is shattered, that is suffering these layoffs, that is suffering these losses. So, to the studio that was working on it, I hope that all of them are able to find some new positions. And are able to help contribute towards whatever new projects. And EA said that they're trying to find positions within the companies that they could work at, which is always nice to hear. But it's always just a shame when you see any cancellations of this nature. Anyway, all right. So, Redfall, $19 on Steam at this moment. I might have to buy it on might have to buy a Steam Deck. Steam Deck is a really great console. Speaking of Steam Deck, one interesting little bit that we can share is, have you guys seen this? This was actually really, really recent. Well, actually, I want to go through some of the chats. Lucas, have you maybe thought that the game sucked and it wasn't worth sinking any more money into it? Why is everyone acting that that's not a possibility? I feel horrible about the jobs, but come on. Lucas, yeah, no, of course, that's a possibility. Listen, don't get me wrong. The game could have been an utter development hell. It could have been a complete atrocity. In fact, there's some inside reports that say that the game was not doing well. That was how we actually started talking about it, right? When we started talking about this story in particular, it was with the influence that Sweet Baby Inc. had a massive scandal in the beginning. Where is that part of the story? So, can I find it? Yeah, here we go. So that was initial. So Sweet Baby Inc. had a lot of scrutiny over their hiring practices. And honestly, it's very possible that this was a massive contribution to how EA, when they went in and they saw what the game was coming out to be, that, you know, you look at something, for example, like Dragon Age the Veilguard, right? Dragon Age the Veilguard faced a lot of criticism because it was trying to hammer home messaging. We see a lot of people who are not fans of Sweet Baby Inc., right? A lot of people are saying, oh, they earned themselves a bad reputation. They earned themselves a bad reputation. Thank you, Lotus Esprit. I think that was just a delayed super chat that came in now for some reason. Yeah, these are delayed super chats. But thank you again, Lotus and Fark, for sending in super chats. So you just got a second notification. There you go. People don't like Sweet Baby. So, entirely possible, Lucas. No one is denying that. But there you go. What's up, Frost? How's it going? You make a good point, Lucas, but I'd still want a chance to see how they would have played. Usually some I don't care about. I also heard a rumor the Star Wars developer is struggling with teamwork. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, or the Jedi series as a whole, is in a really difficult place because they had already announced that Stig Asmussen left, that he was no longer a part of the game series, and
Stop!
That was
you violated the law.
Thank you for the two. Have another one. Enjoy. Akatosh, bless you, Fark, for another 2 quid. Thank you very much for the support. I appreciate that a lot. What was I saying? Yeah, Stig Asmussen left, which is a really worrying part of development when it was originally him that had said, we want to make this game a trilogy. It was his vision to make this game into a trilogy, and yet he left before the third game came out. So if there are issues going on at the studio, I wouldn't be surprised if they're having trouble working together. And honestly, I think that at least for the short term, I'm not going to be surprised if a lot of studios have trouble working together, Because we have to keep in mind, when you're suddenly going from a team of, let's just say 100 people down to 40 people, right? You know, we have to think about the percentage, right? I think the percentage of a lot of these layoffs will be like 6%, 7%, or maybe like 3% even of the total workforce. But when you're, let's just say hypothetically, when you're going from a team of 100 to, let's just say 60 people, a lot of those positions sure are going to be middle management. And that's a big part of it. But another big part of it too is that now you do have to figure out how to work within that new structure. So at least temporarily, especially for hires that might have came in and are wondering, are trying to figure out just sort of the workflow and the structure at a new company to begin with. Now suddenly even the people who are higher up in the company go, we don't really know because the guy who was supposed to be doing that job is now gone. So I don't know. We're kind of just throwing it your way and you got to figure it out yourself. And, you know, everything's just sort of up in the air. And I'm speaking from experience as someone whose company recently went through layoffs herself. Some of those positions were things that there was a person who I directly relied on that was laid off. And it was a big hit for me because it directly impacted my role, and I'm now responsible for a lot of additional things that I previously didn't have to do that now are falling into my lap. And it's just sort of like, okay, how do I balance all of this new responsibility with all of my original responsibilities when all of my original responsibilities were fine? It'll be fine. It will be. But there's going to be a transition period is ultimately what I'm getting at. There's going to be a transition period where teams are going to fight, they're going to argue, there's going to be finger pointing, and there's going to be blame, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty, and it might take a game release or two to realize how all of this is now going to work with these new corporate team sizes. What other people have experience, chat? It's for only specific channels. I got lucky. I guess maybe it might be limited to channels who stream a lot. Maybe they sort of said, oh, this channel streams a lot, we'll throw in the experience points. What I don't understand, YouTube, for the love of God, just copy Twitch. All you need to do is just copy Twitch and throw in the point system. Throw in, or maybe this is a stage 1, they're doing the XP, they see how the XP works. But throw in the goddamn point system where viewers can redeem things for watching your streams, and they should carry over. And it could be silly things like hydrate, take a drink, do the right? It's highlight my question. Or you could already do that with just super chats, but like if you want to highlight the question without needing to right to super, just throw. I love that system in Twitch, and I have no idea why YouTube is why is YouTube so slow? They're owned by Google, god damn it. Figure it out. But anyway, select very special content creators. Hey King, how's it going? Very special content creators such as myself were blessed with the opportunity to do this. I want to throw in, I know we have some limited viewership with this, which is why those of you that are here, I'm going to need honest feedback. Honest feedback. There's not too many here tonight, and I believe I know the reason why. I think I know the reason why, but here. So I'm gonna put out a poll. I will need honest feedback if you are here. Again, we have limited viewership tonight. I'm guessing the reason is partially tied to this new format. But if you want to... It's funny that the chat brought that up as individual chats. But let me know how you guys feel about it. If you like this format where we do dedicated news segments, or if you prefer to have the consistent streaming. And doesn't mean that, you know, I won't ever go back to this kind of style in the future. But it might just mean, at least for the time being, that it's more worthwhile to keep it as just an interaction between us. So just let me know. Honest feedback is really helpful. We're testing out new things. I like to always try new things at the bare minimum. So, you know, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. It is what it is. But just provide some honest feedback if ye don't mind. And, you know, we'll experiment. We'll do a little experiment. So option number 1, I'm here for the stream. That would mean it's more like the old style where it's constantly interacting with chat. I like the coherent news is obviously the new format. So let me know your thoughts on that. I do have just one other thing that I wanted to share. Did you guys see this? Well, you guys participated in the polls. Have you guys seen this? This just came out today with... Oh, not this article. Sorry. Right here. That's old news. This is new news. 48 minutes ago. It's probably a little bit longer. But by Jez Corden, my friend, friend of the channel, he said, he DM'd me and said, you know, the time doesn't work for him to join the streams. But he does catch them all on demand. He probably messaged me as much. But really cool bit of news, I think, which is that they're delaying their handheld. Why would I say that's cool news? I think it's cool news personally because ultimately what we're seeing is Microsoft is choosing to focus on their Windows 11 gaming performance itself, specifically on handheld. So again, it does tie into this that the next-gen handheld is actually really an ROG ally or some variation of it, right? They're partnering with a third company. However, what I will say is if this ultimately translates to getting a better experience on Windows PC as well as getting a better experience on a handheld, then I think this is a really good move by Microsoft. Because if it's an incredibly challenging market, there's rumors that sort of there's a lot going around in regards to SteamOS and how they're going to be improving their performance. And ultimately, there's a lot of competitiveness when it comes to handhelds at this moment in time, right? Whether you're looking at the Nintendo Switch or you're looking at the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Legion, or the Steam Deck. There's a lot of competition in the space, which means that Microsoft really needs to do something great. And you do have a harder value proposition when even, for example, on the Steam Deck or even on the ROG, you're able to already get things like the Microsoft and Windows Store, and you could get sort of a Windows and a normal interface on that, right? So when you're already available on multiple different, when you're already available on multiple different handhelds and people could get it on Steam Deck, you need to make sure that whatever you're releasing is among the best to incentivize people to buy your hardware. Now, good news is, for those of you who are interested in the console, like the successor to the Series X, that is still in the works. It's still around 2027-ish that they're going to launch it, so you're still going to get that as well, which is cool, and I'm happy to see. But ultimately, I don't know. I hope that Microsoft just really gets it down with a solid handheld. I don't have too much to say on this one, just because it's a new story. and I haven't spent too much time looking into it. But good from the little bit that I do know. Nice to see that Microsoft is focusing on the actual operating system and the functionality of it before releasing anything. I think that shows good priorities, right? I'm curious to see how it will shape up, especially considering that the thing I'm most curious to see from any Xbox handheld is how it's going to shape up when it pertains to pricing. Because, of course, Xbox just raised their prices, PlayStation just lowered their prices. PlayStation is working on their new handheld, which is going to be releasing sometime soon-ish. I think I'm down for the next Xbox. It is the right decision. Get the software right, then release the handheld. Exactly, Fark, right? It's nothing bad that they're doing here. Again, not too much to say on that front. Other than get it right. Get it right the first time. Just get it right the first time. The thing I'm most curious, like I said, the thing I'm most curious about is really going to be the price. Because now that PlayStation hardware got cheaper while Xbox got more expensive, that's exactly, honestly, what I was hoping to see PlayStation do. Not because I want to incentivize console wars, but just because I'm thinking as a competitor, right? I'm thinking, hey, if I'm Sony and I'm looking at Microsoft going, Microsoft just raised their prices and they just announced $80 games. How do we what do we do here? Let's lower our consoles. We don't got to do it much. Nobody's really buying them any, because that's the thing, right? This is the first generation where prices have gone up and not down years into the console generation. And so for Sony to be like, no, we're actually going to lower the price, like, you know, we're supposed to, because the parts are cheaper and the hardware is cheaper and it's just easier to, you know, there's less people buying it. So maybe we could get a couple more purchases if we lower the price and say, oh, look, it's on a sale forever. Smart move on their part. Xbox has the wrong idea. What is going to be the price of the new hardware? Is PlayStation going to try to incentivize purchase their console? Because we've talked about in the past how these console manufacturers just don't want to eat the price of the console anymore. It's been, hey, Chris, how's it going? My week is all screwed up because I'm at the hotel tomorrow. Sorry I missed it. Don't worry, Chris. You never have to apologize. I'm happy you were able to stop in. Even if you just stop in and say hi, it's good enough for me. I'm glad to see you here. So I'm curious to see if with the next generation console, because we've talked about in the past how these companies are tired of eating the cost of the console. They have always taken a loss and they don't want to anymore. And I don't 100% blame them, but at the same time, I think that especially for something like Xbox, where they're in a position that they really don't care whether or not you buy their console, because you can buy the handheld, the ROG. You can play it on PC. You can play it in all these. We've talked about this in the past many times. Hey, American Fury, seeing you twice in 1 week. Well, you could see me twice in 1 week. See me 3 times in 1 week. Hell, check out a video. If I publish one, of course. But I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, it's getting late for me. I'm losing my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, right. So if next generation console, if Microsoft is using the strategy of Xbox Play Anywhere, which is their ongoing strategy, and now Sony decides suddenly they're going to step in and say, oh, we're releasing the PlayStation 6. And also, by the way, it's really not that much more expensive than the PlayStation 5. Good time for players to start diving into a PlayStation, especially when a lot of these gamers now know that they're going to be able to get their games on Xbox, for their Xbox games on PlayStation. Just saying. So when you're able to play Starfield on PlayStation and Indiana Jones on PlayStation and Sea of Thieves and Halo and Hellblade and all these other titles that are making their way over, Avowed, Outer Worlds 2, all these titles that are making their way over to PlayStation, when you start seeing that, it's a pretty good opportunity for PlayStation to capitalize it and say, hey, let's make sure that we get people to buy our console and they don't gravitate towards, well, I'll just get a Samsung TV and then integrate my Xbox Game Pass into it, my cloud streaming, in order to be able to play here, right? Oh, let's make sure that people buy PlayStation instead of just having them buy a PC or having them buy the next Xbox console that'll be priced at who knows what. I've been playing Aliens Dark Descent. Yeah, how is Alien Dark Descent? I'm still shocked at Forza Horizon. It seems strange. Forza Horizon 5 on PS5. It does, but not when you... Listen, not when you just consider Microsoft's overall strategy, which is that they don't care anymore. They do not care. They haven't for a while. They've been gearing towards that direction. And it shows when they're willing to do a title like Starfield, which I think we're going to get at Summer Game or at the Microsoft Showcase. I think we're going to see Starfield on PS5 announced. So when you start to realize that Xbox is, when you accept, I guess when you just fully mentally accept the fact that it is strange to see, strange is the right word. Strange is the right word. But when you fully accept that Microsoft's new plan is, we don't care, man. Just play the games. Just play it there. Buy Game Pass while you're at it and subscribe to our service, and then it doesn't matter. When you really fully accept that that's their strategy, it's okay. And there still might be this timed exclusivity. Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6. A year. 2 years. Whatever they want to do. They may not even need another console or handheld. They don't. I think that ultimately the reason why they would want to release these, you know, obviously the big question now, we know next gen is safe. They're working on the next gen console. Obviously the conversation right now is whether or not there's going to be a next gen console. I don't know what the Xbox crowd is saying, right? That the people who are more heavily invested in the Xbox brand than I am, because I am very much in the middle. My perspective on these sorts of things is honestly, it doesn't really impact me. So as long as you have access to the games you want to play, but whether or not they will need another console remains to be seen. I think it's entirely possible that they really just stop with hardware. I think it's entirely possible. And for what it's worth, what I will definitively say, that's my uneducated take on it, right? Is I could see a future where Xbox says we don't really need to make any hardware anymore. What I can say a bit more confidently is I don't really trust what Microsoft says personally. If Phil Spencer comes out on stage and says, no, we love the consoles, we love publishing these games on our Xbox hardware, and we want to keep making our Xboxes, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I don't. Because they've pivoted so many times. They pivoted when they said, you know, it's always been an instance, I feel, within the past few years at Microsoft, it's always been an instance where they toe the line where technically they are taking each game as a case-by-case basis, whether that's what they originally had said, right? It's going to be a case-by-case basis, how we evaluate which games go to which platforms. But that doesn't mean that that's actually how it plays out. Yeah. because ultimately there's people up above that are going to make that decision and all be all. I like Aliens Dark Descent. It's isometric, Tom Clancy, Future Warrior, the Aliens universe. Control squad, upgrade their abilities, and train their job. Cool PTSD system. I heard Dark Descent is really, really good. I've heard Dark Descent is a fun one. So I'm glad you're enjoying it, Chris. Especially since you're traveling between hotels, it seems like it is exactly the prime type of experience that is what you need right now for travel. If you're playing that on a Steam Deck, even better. Or a handheld of some kind. It's been in my backlog for a while. Nice. You can get Game Pass on TVs now. My internet at the new place is going to be 5 gigs second. They had 7 for $109, so there shouldn't be a game I can't stream at 4K. Yeah, I have. We have on the TV I have it's Xbox Game Pass compatible, and so the cool thing is that you just need the controller. Just get the controller, you hook it up through Bluetooth, and then you're good to go. And then you get Game Pass, and you can play everything through streaming. And it's really, really quite neat. Why do I need to spend $100 on a console? I'll just buy a brand new, or $100, $600, excuse me, $700 to get all the console and the peripherals that I'll need, when I can just buy a nice new TV that I've been looking at anyway, that I've been in the market for. That's Xbox's strategy, and I think it's the right one, if I'm being honest. I'm calling it the PTSD system. Basically is what it is. Remember when that was a legendary mechanic with Arkham Asylum? Arkham Asylum came out, and you had the detective vision that could see the heart rates of the enemies, and then they'd start freaking out more and more as you took out all their buddies, and then you would hit a fire extinguisher, and the fire extinguisher would go off, and they would freak out, and they'd shoot, or like just a pipe would go off near them, and then they'd freak out, and they'd start shooting in the air. Man, that was a good time. That was one of the coolest systems. One of the coolest systems that I've seen. Okay, so I see 13 votes. Thank you for those of you who contributed. So for those of you who are watching, we basically we tested out a new style today, where we shifted between, oh, that's my stream overlay. We tested out a new style where we sort of bounced between looking at an article, right? And I was really talking more about the article at hand, and then I would sort of shift between this and the full camera, and we go through some parts of the article, and I have some sources ready for whatever we're talking about, and then shift back to the main cam, and then we go to this when we're actually in chat. So we started a poll where I'm trying to get a gauge on how you guys liked it. So thank you to those of you who contributed to that, because it does provide some really valuable insight. I'm curious. 77% said I like the coherent news. 23% said I'm here for the stream, not a vid. I'm curious. Thank you for those of you who are honest and said that you don't like it. I'm just curious how many people voted I like the coherent news, because you are the ones that are still here, because you didn't leave because we were doing that style. Yeah. I just like to test new things. I like to see what works and doesn't work. But anyway, that's all I had for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We're coming up on time for the stream here. I appreciate each and every one of you. You like it, Bobby? Well, I'll add it to 80% because you were one of the people who said you like it. I like it too. I watch Luke Stevens streams, and I think it's a good balance. I really do think it strikes a good balance, because the difference that he does is, and that's really where this was pulled from. The difference of what he does is, I need to stop putting that up, is what he will do is have something like, give me a sec here. He will have something like, And he'll have something like this. So as there are chats, right, and then that way people still can get to kind of see their comments come up, and all the interactions, they still do come up. And then he leaves it in that way. So I might do the same, just because I don't want it to feel like I'm completely ignoring you guys, right? And I still want you guys to contribute to the conversation in such a way that we're able to, if I do see something come up that I think is worth addressing, I can still address it, versus, hey, I have my notes and I'm going to get through my points, and then we'll switch over and we'll go to your points, and then we go to my points, and then we go to your points and your chats, right? So I think maybe we try it in this. Chris, I don't really care as long as we have interaction. Your off-cuff takes are good too. Yes. Someone gifted me a membership, so I had to make sure I got to use them. Thank you, Chris, for the very generous $20 super chat. You'll get my off-the-cuff takes. You'll get my off-the-cuff takes because there's going to be certain things that, like, there's going to be basically some major so I'll have planned in advance, like, 2 things that I say, okay, I kind of would maybe want to make this into a video. And then there's still going to be other things that I address that I'll just have as discussions. I'll pull up an article like this, and I'll be chatting with you guys. And maybe I try to make it a little bit more clear, and I have just sort of a just chatting thing in the corner, right? I don't know. I'm willing to test different things. And then if there's no sort of just chatting thing up, then you know that I'm doing a more of a segment, right? But if there's just chatting, then it's more of a dialogue, and sort of that would be perfect. Exactly when we were talking about, for example, the Xbox stuff. Like, I didn't have anything planned for this really. I knew I wanted to talk about it today, but I didn't have anything specific ready to go, or that I wanted to have an super really in depth. So something like this, I would have, you know, just chatting labeled, and then something like the Black Panther story, I would not have just chatting called out somewhere. So I don't know. Anyway, that's all for me tonight. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you for playing around with me as I try different things. Let me know if you're watching this on demand. Let me know what you think of the format as well down below in the comment section, because I know there's a handful of you that do. Showing your sources is never bad. That's also part of the idea too, right? That's also part of the idea. Congratulations to our community members. Bobby Hawk, #1, for being the most engaged viewer for today's stream. Lotus Esprit, #2. The Arcane Realm, #3. For having the most engaged. All the rest of you, what are you doing? What are you even doing? No, I'm just kidding. FarQ, #4, Sipsity, #5, Jeremy, #6, Slowlark, #7, OG Frostbite, #8, Looney Luna, 9, Influent, 10. And all the rest of you, try harder and chat more. You didn't do good enough. No, thank you everybody for hanging out tonight. Jeremy, you're #6. You're #6. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Thank you to Lotus Esprit, FarQ, and Chris Harris for the very generous super chats during tonight's stream. Really very much appreciate the support. And as nobody told me hi back, I said hi to you, King. Everybody say hi to King. Every single person at King, and say hello. And we missed you. And we love you. There you go. There you go, King. I hope you're welcomed. I hope you feel welcomed. Alright, anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. It's always at the end of the stream. We have 18 people watching at the end of the stream. Always frustrating when this happens. For those of you... Oh, it just dropped down substantially. For those of you who are joining now, question. For those of you who are just hopping in, is it a matter of timing? Because it's later. It's now after 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Although that was at 18 and it just dropped down to 9 or to lower. But I usually don't keep an eye on view counts, but I am curious if it's just a time thing. Which means I would be more inclined to stream longer or later. Probably just start a little bit later. Like start at around 7 p.m. I'm curious. Later? Later is not clear enough. Later is in start later and go later? Or are you just saying later like goodbye? Later like... Stop hanging out. Later. Yes. Yes to which one, Lotus? If you stream later, I'm not going to be able to make it just because of the time difference, Slowlark. So if we started 30 minutes later. If we started 30 minutes later. So normally I start at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, which is where we started tonight. If I started 30 minutes later, that doesn't work? To all and none. That's what I'm getting, Bobby. That's what I'm understanding. Yes to everything, but also no. But also kind of yes, but no, not at all. What are you thinking, you idiot? Am I late? Yes, you are, Jonas. Yes, you are. Indeed, you are. Indeed you are. It's so hard to tell. It's so hard to tell. Alright, anyway. It's only 12. Oh my god, for you. Holy hell. It's about that time for Jonas too, I think. Anyway, alright. I don't know. We'll just keep it at 6:30 for now. We'll keep it at 6:30. He's contemplative or hungry? I'm contemplative. Do what's best for you. Thank you, Lotus. But then I realize I just one person. Yeah, of course. No, don't worry. I get you. We're contemplative, Jonas, because we're just trying to figure out. We played around with the new style of stream today. And we are thinking about different times to start. But anyway, alright, that'll be it for today. I'm rambling. Thank you all so much for hanging out tonight. Thank you to all of our channel members. Thank you to those who have gifted channel memberships. And thank you to Chris, Fark, and Lotus Esprit for being very generous to 7 p.m. So if I was able to do YouTube, which will never happen, but if that was an opportunity, I would consider doing a stream where it's like 2 hours of talking about what's going on, and then like 2 hours of playing a game of some kind and hanging out and just chatting with you guys in one long mega stream. That would be like a day I carve out to do that. But hey, real life. Anyway, thank you all. I'm droning. The experience points to move up every 2 hours. I don't know what that means. Anyway, congrats to those of you who won the community. Thank you all and have a wonderful night. I will see you all next week. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope to see you there for the next episode. And we'll keep testing out this new format. We'll see how it works. Good night, everybody. Oh! Oh, wait. One other thing. One other thing. Really super important, actually. So, thank you to that blue number who had shared this in chat. Now, we're gonna have one more stream, one more episode before the the game showcases, which I will be streaming the game showcases. However, thank you to that blue number for sharing something really, really cool. There is a charity event that's going on for WDC's Games for Waves. Let me actually pull this up. Let me pull this up. So, there's a charity event calling all streamers. This is going on. I think that this is going on for a couple days. That happens to coincide with the days in which Summer Games Fest and the Xbox Showcase and some other things are going on. So, in which case, I will want to participate in this, and during those events, I'll probably turn off monetization in all capacity because I don't really care about it that much. I mean, I do, don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. Like, I keep it open because I really appreciate it, and it helps me, like, do things with you guys and, like, do giveaways and stuff like that. But I'll probably turn it off because this is a really good cause. And so any, like, sort of donations or super chats that you might want to give can go to this instead, because many of you might not know about me that I'm really, really passionate about ocean wildlife. Like, scuba diving is one of my favorite things to do. I don't get to do it often, but the ocean and its wildlife there is absolutely incredible, and it's worth protecting and preserving. And so during, if this does take place in the time frame I think it does, we'll be contributing to that. We'll be contributing to that. So, just wanted to share that news. I will be streaming the game showcases, number one, and I will want to put money towards that. Scuba Marco. Yeah, Scuba Marco's a real thing. Save the squids. Are the squids in danger? Yes, and the dolphin, and the whales, and the shrimp, and the oysters, and the mussels, and the clams, and the tortoises, and the seahorses, and the manta rays, and the sea lions, and the penguins, and the sea leopards, and the otters, especially the otters, and the mollusks, and the sea snails. And they are delicious. Anyway, and maybe if it does really well, maybe we'll do another thing like this. Huh? Maybe we'll do... Oh! Maybe we'll do another exclusive... I don't know if anybody really cares about it this much, but maybe we'll do another piece of exclusive DeMarco Dude merchandise. Maybe we will actually give away the plain white mug of some kind. Or we'll just do some DeMarco Dude merch of some... Maybe we'll do a giveaway like that. That would be kind of fun for just sort of a top donation. Those who donate get entered into a raffle and can get something like that. Because there is one singular piece of DeMarco Dude merch out in existence in the world. There could be two. I mean, technically, I don't know if this counts because Stars for Change was a DeMarco Dude thing. But, so technically there's two pieces, I guess, if you want to consider it. So there you go. Assassin, hey! Sad to see Black Panther canceled. Yeah, we're wrapping up, but yeah, we talked about that. It is sad to see, but I don't think it's necessarily unexpected. EA having 2 more unannounced Marvel games is not on my bingo card. Well, yeah, 2 more. It's exciting. It is. I am curious to see what they do. I don't know if I'm curious to see EA do it. Honestly, it's not as though they have a great reputation, especially with everything going on between studio closures and mismanagement, and it's messy over at EA right now. But there you go. So anyway, thank you guys. Actually, goodbye this time. Wanted to share that bit of news. Appreciate all the support, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody. Yeah, yet.